Welcome to the Wilderness Podcast. I'm your host for tonight, Trey, and joined again by our kind of quickly becoming our on-the-ground news correspondent, Mitty. Mitty, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Trey?
You know what? I am staring down the barrel of a 4-day weekend right now. It's Thursday night. I don't have to go back to work till Tuesday. So I'm feeling great right now. I just had some ice cream. Life couldn't be better. We're here to talk about Yama the drama demon. It's been a drama-filled week with the Yama release. There's been all kinds of stuff. I mean, it wouldn't be a big RuneScape release if Reddit wasn't in flames, and everybody who's not on Reddit is just kind of looking around like, wait, why is everybody mad? This is great. But yeah, we're here. We're going to talk all about everything to do with Yama. Just, I guess, a little bit of overview. If you don't know what that is, Yama is the new boss that released, last week from when we're recording this. We're recording Thursday night, the week after Yama's release, because I wanted to wait until the first week update because everybody's been expecting some pretty major changes, and we'll get into that later, but they kind of didn't come. I don't know. We'll see if there still is going to be some kind of major change. But yeah, so Yama is a in-game duo boss is how it's been presented. And we have thoughts about both of those things. But yeah, so part of the reason I wanted to have Mitty specifically on was Mitty was there with me at 5:30 a.m. our time. We're both in Central Time. The updates come out at 5:30, and Mitty and I were in Discord in voice chat the second the update went live. I had about 30 minutes before I had to leave for work. So I just wanted to try to either see somebody get a kill or try to get a kill myself. Had Twitch up. I was looking at what streamers were streaming, and 5:30 a.m. the update goes live. And Mitty, what was our experience?
The Jagex launcher did not launch RuneLite. So I sat there. I woke up early from work. I was so excited. I told my wife, I said, look, this is probably the nerdy thing I'm going to do. I'm going to wake up early. I'm going to log in at 5:30. And I'm going to kill the boss for 2 hours before I have to go to work at 7:30. And she was like, yeah, that sounds like so much fun. And so, of course, I try it. And I'm excited. I get on my PC. I go make some coffee downstairs. I'm sitting on my PC at 5:15 in the morning. I hop on VC. I'm just excited to kill this boss. And then, boom, the update happens and it makes you reload RuneLite. And so I'm like, okay, exit. And I go to launch RuneLite on the Jagex launcher, and it would not let me in. And I did not get to experience Yama for about an hour and a half. So I got maybe 30 minutes of attempts in. And I could log in on mobile, and I tried to kill Yama on mobile for a little bit, but I am not a mobile gamer. I can do a little bit on mobile, but not much. And I was sadly disappointed. I could not really attempt Yama, and I woke up for it, and that's just how it goes on launch day, though.
Yeah, I had to leave for work, and I drove to work, and when I got to the parking lot of my job, I hopped back in Discord, and it was like, how's it going, everybody? And it was like, it's good. It's working. It just started working. We're all getting in. And I was like, cool, I got to go to work for 8 hours. And that was, the FOMO was killing me that day. And this is the same problem that we had on the most recent leagues. It was the same issue where the second the update went live, only the people that use the Jagex launcher weren't able to get in. And oh my gosh, it's such a, I'm totally patient and understanding when it comes to bugs and stuff like that. But from an optics perspective, it's so bad that the Jagex proprietary launcher that they keep pushing and they keep saying is better in every way is the thing that's gatekeeping the people who have actually indulged in that and downloaded it. Those are the people who are being punished on these huge updates. And it's, oh man, it's so bad.
I could not agree with you more. It's like so disheartening because I believe so much in the Jagex launcher. I believe everything they say about account security and all of that stuff. But then something like this happens and I'm like, oh, this can't be like for real. This cannot be serious. And it just breaks my heart.
Yeah, and I don't think they've released anything that's given any clarity as to why that's happening. But I mean, it is what it is. If we wanted a game that was stable and without glitches and perfect, this is definitely not the right game for that. We just saw with the update today, one of the most random bugs ever. If I'm not mistaken, I believe fletching darts was giving melee XP or something like that. Just a total like spaghetti code bug. So it wouldn't be RuneScape if we didn't have little stuff like that.
So true.
Yeah. Okay. So, but we did finally get in to kill the boss. How long did it take you to get your first KC?
So I didn't get KC until I got home from work. So like I said, I had about 30 minutes of attempts and I was doing a duo with somebody. And so we were trying to sync up together and then one of us would die. So we'd go bank. And so I probably maybe set like 5 attempts before I actually had to go to work. So I didn't get any attempts. I didn't get any kills. I did see, I think it was Bodhi get his first kill. And that was within like maybe the first hour or so. And so I knew that it was possible. Mm-hmm. And so when I got home, I think I one and done it. I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong. I don't remember exactly, but it was either 1 or 2 attempts. It didn't take me super long to do it because the mechanics had already been figured out. I mean, it was like 9 hours from when I had first attempted it. So everything was solved because that's just the RuneScape community. Like give them 8 hours. They'll completely solve a piece of content.
And they'll solve it more than the J mods, which is what we found out very quickly. Yeah, I went in. Well, before I start talking about myself, fast forwarding to now, what's your current KC? How much of this have you done?
I'm at around 250 KC.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So from my end, I got home from work and I did not get a KC the first night. I was struggling, and also the dynamic here of the duo boss is really interesting because you get to thinking like, oh, I only have to find one other person, but those little groups of 2, it'd be hard to find one other person because everybody just starts grouping up. It's like you're at prom or something, and everybody grabs a date, and you're just sitting there alone. Sorry, I was remembering high school. So, like, I think I finally got a consistent partner by the second day, and I got my first KC. And man, it was Jad hands all around. That final phase was so intense, and it was funny. I mean, we'll get to it when we talk about the fight itself, but it was funny because I had I don't know if you had the same feeling, but for the most part during the enraged phase, I kept thinking like, oh man, when somebody else does the work and gives me the tile markers for this is going to be so much easier. Because it was like, I know that there's got to be an optimal place to stand for this enraged phase, and turns out there was, and it changes everything. And the first night I did it with someone who was also going in blind, and we were just dying. And I mean, it was fun. Don't get me wrong. But the second day I ran it with somebody else who knew the mechanics, and they were like, oh yeah, so this is what they're praying. It's like, oh, I thought we were just guessing every time and stuff like that. And over this past week, having learned the mechanics and stuff, it is, well, okay, we can transition into actually talking about the fight itself. So yeah, the fight is, I think overall, I mean, the biggest takeaway I can give from Yama is it's fun.
Yeah.
It's a really fun boss fight.
Couldn't agree more.
Despite any criticisms that I will inevitably give about it, there's been a lot of people saying, we're going to talk obviously about all of the drop rates and the gear and the rewards and stuff. But what a lot of people have been saying is the reason that the drop rates, that so many of these items are in the game right now is because people actually want to fight this boss. People are actually having fun and enjoying killing this boss. And I think that, I don't know if I've seen any just out and out haters of this boss. Everybody's got criticisms. Both of us have criticisms, but I think they knocked it out of the park as far as the fun of the fight.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. This is the most fun I've had killing a boss in a long time. And I really enjoy in-game PVM. Like, I love Tob and I love most of the new bosses that came out. I really liked Araxor when it first came out. Coming up on like 800 KC, it's getting a little bit stale. And I'm hoping that Yama doesn't do that because of, I was talking with somebody about it last night, about just how high Yama's skill ceiling is. which is really, really awesome. It's very similar to Tob, where the ceiling is infinite. It's not infinite. There's obviously a cap somewhere where you can't do more DPS or squeeze anything out a little bit more. But the skill ceiling is just so high that you can constantly strive to improve, which is something that I love when it comes to PVM. Like your first couple KC at Yama, you'll probably be doing mage, and then you'll switch to melee, and then you'll potentially learn how to dono fly or mono fly. And you just keep learning and learning and learning, which it reminds me so much of when I first learned Tob, and you're like shaking doing the whip walk, and then now I'm scythe walking and I could do it with my eyes closed if I wanted to. So like, there's just, all that to say, they did a phenomenal job with this boss. Yama is just so much fun. And like I said, I'm 250 KC in, and I'm still just having the time of my life.
Yeah, I think the comparison to Tob for me, the way I feel it the most is like, as I was doing Tob, it was always this kind of this process of like, I always like number one priority always is get the KC and stay alive. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to do everything the easiest way possible. I'm going to do the chillest way. I'm going to range at Zarpus, all that kind of stuff. And then it's like, okay, I've gotten 25 KC. Let's take it one step at a time. What's one new mechanic? And I mean, you were one of the people teaching me Tob that I would be asking stuff like this. It's like, all right, what's the next step? It's like, okay, let's try try to get get a Chally in at blow. Try to get your spec and your certain number of attacks at blow. It's like, okay, don't tell me anything else. That's the only thing I'm going to change this run. And like, we're going to get a KC, and like 10 KC later, it's like, okay, what should I try next? And okay, let's start working on that Zarpus walk or something. And I feel that same way with Yama, kind of like you were saying. There's a big part of the community is still mage only because that's a chiller way. It's objectively slower, but it's the easier way of killing the boss. And that's very similar to Tob. Those are the DPS role only people that will never have learned to like freeze and stuff. And there will be people who will always and forever be mage only at Yama because it's the easiest thing to do. It's the easiest method that still gets you KC, and it's still going to be relatively fast. But as you start to progress, it's like, okay, let's start to add melee in. Okay, I'm getting comfortable with melee. Like, okay, yeah, it's just I basically just have to flick my prayer, and then, well, why don't we start doing orb skips? It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. This is how you do an orb skip, and it's like, okay, we do that for a few KC. Maybe it kills us one time because we don't do it right, but we slowly add that in. And then I think the final step, and I haven't even gotten here yet, is like you're talking about essentially meleeing on the third phase, which is it seems right now like there's 100 different methods for that. And you probably know more than I do about, is there kind of a progression within that? Do you start with dono fly and then move on to harder, quote unquote, like fly methods, or?
You probably can. So I currently only do, so the two main methods that I know about, it's dono and mono fly. And the reason they're called that is the person that created them, the first four letters of their names were dono and mono. So very creative. So if you want to make your own method at Yama, just do the first four letters of your name and then fly at the end and post it on YouTube. No, but I learned dono fly because that was the first thing that came out. And it's essentially, it works for duos. So you can do the dono fly for duos every single time and the fire won't hit you. The mono fly is actually for solos. So it actually matters who goes into the layer first, because that actually changes P3, the falling orbs or the falling fireballs. Whoever is the owner of the instance, the orbs will fall a certain diagonal every single time. And the person that enters, the diagonal ones will fall the opposite way. There's so many cool little niche things that Jagex throwing in that are mechanics that you can learn. And I read somewhere on, I think it was on Reddit, that there's still mechanics that we haven't figured out yet, which I absolutely love that. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, there was a new mechanic I learned last night that, just very simple, but it was like, oh, the floor pattern at the very beginning of the fight tells you what the prayer that you'll start with at the start of the enraged phase is. Just little things like that. It's just really cool.
Yeah, and this kind of just goes back to how much depth there is to the content, which again, I can't praise them enough for adding so much depth to it. But back to the flying method, essentially, dono fly you can always do in duos, and the reason that you would learn mono fly is if you plan on doing solo Yama kills. The mono fly allows you to attack the orbs on a certain phase that you're in, and so you can continue melee even after orbs spawn, and that's the incentive behind that. I currently haven't run any solos, and I don't really plan on running solos because I just don't find it enjoyable. Well, I say I haven't run any. I've run a couple of solos, and I just don't find it as fun as I do duos. So I don't think I'll learn the mono method because dono fly works for duos, and that's just what I enjoy.
Yeah, we got into me and some of the other people got into kind of a long conversation yesterday. We're just really trying to break down what makes fun, difficult content. And I definitely think the progressive learning of kind of small improvements throughout the fight, little mechanics and methods is probably the biggest one. It's just I don't even know from a design perspective how you design for that specifically. Like I was saying with Tob and like we're saying with Yama, I don't know how you plan to have like, oh, they can kill it this way and then they're going to learn to kill it this way. I think a big thing that I would also say is a part of fun, difficult content that I feel like I've seen a lot of other content creators talk about is the predictability of it. Yama is in a very set pattern with little inconsistencies here and there, like with the summoning of the orbs, at least in the first two phases. But, that predictability allows for stuff like the dono fly because where those fireball spawns are going to be. And that allows you to have a predictable pattern that's really hard to pull off. But it's not like it's still possible because there is that predictability there. I don't know. That's just really interesting to me. The idea that something being predictable can allow it to be like harder, but still more fun. I don't know. I feel like that's something I've heard a lot of people say about maybe like Inferno or Tob. There's something about, I don't know, that predictability. I think I don't remember which episode it was, but we were talking about what was fun about Tob, and it was this idea of how you get into these like mechanics or these methods, like something like dono fly or something like a scythe walk. And there's getting into that and having it feel super satisfying when you pull it off, and then having mechanics that break you out of that, like maybe like crabs at Tob will break you out of that, and then getting back into that again. And just that feeling of like, it's not even the feeling of being in rhythm, but successfully like entering into that rhythm. I don't know. Something about that just feels really good.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
The more difficult that it is to get into that, the better it feels when you do it.
I agree. Like this game is I know you say it's not like, it is rhythm based, like kind of like what you said. And the feeling of getting into a rhythm, falling out of that rhythm and being able to get back into it is like super, super comfy and very awesome. And like, it's part of the reason why I love in-game content is that you can get back into this rhythm and everything has a rhythm. And it's just, you have to find it, get in the groove. And that is why like in-game content is so sought after. It's like, even though it is technically less chill and a lot of people play the game for chill, there's just something about like once you get good at the content, being able to get in that rhythm. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. They did a really good job with Yama. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. Before we get into complaining, about the fight. Is there anything you can think of that makes like I'm just really interested in this concept of like content being fun and difficult, and like I feel like that's just that peak of content that they're always searching for is fun and difficult. Is there anything else in the Yama's fight that you think contributes to that being fun but still difficult?
I mean, like obviously the dono fly is just so like fun and so satisfying. Like getting into cycle and into rhythm is like just great. There's a lot of kind of like you said, just the progression that you can go through. I don't think there's anything that's necessarily difficult with the fight, but it's learning stuff to make things go faster every single kill that you do. That is what makes it fun. It doesn't necessarily make it more difficult, but like you said, learning how to orb skip. At first, you're like, oh, I just got to kill all these orbs that spawn whenever they spawn. Then you kind of learn this method about orb skipping, and it shaves off 10 seconds to your kill or 15 seconds to your kill because you're not having to lose DPS on the boss because you feel comfortable orb skipping. And it's not necessarily hard to orb skip. It's just you stand on a certain orb in the right, like 5-tick window. There's a ton of leeway for error, but there's something just feels so good about doing it successfully and not losing DPS on the boss. I think that's what makes it fun, is when you can do something and continue to DPS the boss more and more and more. That's the satisfying part of it, I think.
Right. And I think, two things about the orbs that Jagex seems to be either listening to feedback or actually respecting the players is A, the orbs do a ton of damage to you if you don't take care of them. Mm-hmm. And B, the boss is not immune to damage once the orbs spawn. So those two things in tandem together means you can't just ignore the orbs, but you're not forced to deal with the orbs. And I think that makes for a great gameplay, because then it's like, okay, so now the goal is let's deal with the orbs as quickly as possible. So maybe starting out, it was like, okay, well, let's hit them with mage. And like, we'll do the purging staff spec on them, because purging staff spec, if you use it as a finishing blow, then it reduces the attack time before your next attack. So that was one of the first optimizations that people were making was like, okay, hit it once and spec it on the second time with your purging staff. And then you'll get back on the boss. You'll be doing, like you said, doing more DPS to the boss. And then the orb skip kind of blossomed. And now that's, I think, probably quickly becoming the meta as people are learning how to do it, becoming more comfortable with it. But yeah, it's not freaking Calvarion where this is the dogs are out. This is the dog out phase. Mm-hmm. So the boss cannot be hit during the dog out phase. Go do your chores, then come back to the boss. And I'm so happy that it's not like that with this fight.
I think they've definitely learned like what people like and what people don't like.
They listen to this podcast.
Oh, for sure. They listen to us directly. And I appreciate them. Every JMod that listens. No, but like, if you think about like crabs at top, like it's the same thing where they'll heal versus like if you don't attack them. But there are some times where you can out DPS first, and not hit the crabs. And it just adds so much variety to the content, which I think is just, again, they did a stellar job. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, no, I think it once again, right before I start complaining, I think the fact that this conversation keeps naturally coming back to Tob as opposed to naturally coming back to TOA or I don't know, some other piece of content that we're frustrated about. Mm-hmm. I think that in and of itself just goes to show how much fun we're having with it, because Tob is just so beloved by the people who enjoy doing it. And for these exact same reasons, I don't know. Yeah. And it almost sounds contradictory. Like it's difficult, but predictable. Mm-hmm. There's variety, but it's predictable. Yeah. It's hard, but it can be chill. Yeah. So I can't say I have nothing but good things to say, because I have two big issues with Yama, and they're both in the title. It's called an in-game duo boss, and I think both of those are lies. I guess just off first impression, would you agree with what I'm saying, that both in-game and duo are lies?
Yes. Yeah. And you can touch on it if you want to. Yeah, you can go ahead and touch on it.
Okay, so we can start with the in-game part. So I think that this is the second that I'm about to start being negative, I literally go straight to I'm going to compare it to TOA. That's really funny. I think the biggest comparison to TOA with this is that it is something that is much more easily kind of conquered than you would think for something of its tier. TOA is known as like the accessible raid. It's the raid that people got completions on day one kind of a thing. And I think for where Yama was projected to be in the kind of progression of bosses, I think people found it to be a lot easier than is expected. It was a lot easier to get day one kills. Like you said, Bodhi got a KC within an hour. And I think it's a hard conversation because there's definitely I think the two factors are this game is solved like from a actual like coding and like mechanical standpoint. This game is solved, and it would be, I don't even know if it's possible for Jagex to add mechanics to the game that aren't able to be defeated on day one, because I mean, you can just make it impossible, and that will prevent people from getting day one kills. But just the very nature of like the tick system and like how people have just so thoroughly embodied that, and just they eat and sleep on the tick system. They can one tick prayer flick every single thing in the game while also changing their inventory, moving around. People are just so good at this game that I don't know if having something that is that difficult is even possible. It definitely is, but it feels like, I don't know. And then I think the second half of that is just the gear that we have. I mean, there's just so much good stuff in the game. People are able to do so much damage so quickly, especially this demon that has every attack style of a demon bane weapon that is much, much more accessible than what you would expect for an in-game boss, which would be the mega rares. And so people are able to get in on this boss. Ironmen are able to be getting consistent KC on this boss and not feel super handicapped, which is all great, but it just makes it, I don't know. It's so then as I'm unraveling my thoughts here, it's accessible and it's hard, but would making it harder than it is currently just be like elitist and gatekeepy at this point? Like, would making it so you need a mega rare to even get a KC probably would be much worse for the game. So then you get back into this conversation of like, are we like catering to the very, very small percentage of people who need this boss to be more difficult and losing out on the 30% of the player base that now isn't able to get a KC? Because part of the reason this boss is so popular is because so many people are able to get KC there.
Yeah, so that's kind of the question. That is the question is, at what point do you make a boss harder and less accessible to the majority of the player base? Coliseum is a good example of that. Coliseum took over 24 hours to get the first KC, which was very exciting and awesome to watch. I don't know if you like are super into that, but like my whole workday when Coliseum came out, I was watching stream hopping at work. Who's at what wave? Okay, this person's at wave 8. Okay, I'm gonna go watch them. Oh, they died. Okay, I'm gonna go switch over to this person. Like I watched Mogul Kirby. He was the first one to actually get to Soul. And I remember watching that and just the sheer awe that I had, how awesome it was. But kind of bringing it back into Yama, is that what we want for a boss who drops in-game armor? Do we want soul level content for what essentially is a side grade or supposed to be a side grade to Torva? Is that what we want for players? I don't really know, to be honest with you.
Yeah. That's kind of where it ends. That's where it ends up for me is I don't know either. Like it gets to the point where like I do keep having this thought of like, this doesn't feel in game.
Mhm.
But then it's like, well, I'm a hell of a lot better at this game than I was when other content came out. So maybe I'm just in game now. I don't know. Obviously, people are struggling with this, but yeah, I feel like if putting the spectrum of abilities and account progression, like, yeah, I feel like if 70 to 99 percentile of people are able to get KC at this boss, do we really want to pull that up to make it so it's 90 to 100 are only able to kill it, just so that 100th percentile is given a satisfying challenge? But I do. This is getting really into the dangerous like HLC weeds. Like I do think those people do. I mean, there is a place for giving super challenging content for those types of people, but at the sacrifice of such a huge part of the player base. I don't know. It's hard, and I kind of come away from it saying I think it is appropriately difficult. And then I start to think about, okay, what could they do to make it more difficult if we wanted to go that way? And like I got to thinking like, okay, well, there's a lot of like in the first couple phases, there's a lot of these specials. Like there's a few different specials for each of the types of glyphs, right? There's like the moon falling on you or like the fire attack. And it's like, okay, so what if there was a different solve to each one of those instead of just standing on the glyph? And then, but my thought to that was like, okay, is that difficult or is that tedious?
Yeah, because to me, what we had just talked about, where we're talking about, we want to keep doing DPS to the boss. Well, if you add mechanics like that, let me just throw in TOA. If you're solving all these puzzles and not doing damage to a boss, is that really fun? Are you really enjoying that? I would argue probably not. And so I think that the way that they did it is fine. Because I mean, here's a question for you, Trey. What is your definition of in-game boss?
Yeah, I don't know, because I mean, I guess it depends on. I mean, it's all relative, right? Like I just said, like me a year ago probably wouldn't be able to get a KC at this boss on my max main just because of my ability. But I've been doing a lot of PVM and I've progressed a lot in my abilities in this game. So yeah, it's all relative. And like, I feel like the only way that people seem to see something as truly difficult is if it's super gate kept, like Inferno and Tob. And if they're told, oh, you couldn't go to that boss. Like you shouldn't even try that. Whereas this, it's much more like, dude, if you can get a hold of a synapse, like you're good to go, like hop in there. And I do think, just to throw a bone to people, that has changed a lot around Tob specifically. There are a lot more people saying like, if you can get a whip in Elite Void, just get in there. And that's great. That's great that the gatekeepiness around Tob seems to be diminishing. But yeah, it's like, I think that's where I keep coming back to with the difficulty is like to sacrifice of the fun of, I think it would be a sacrifice to the fun of the boss to make it more difficult. Because another big thing that Jagex has talked about with this boss, and I don't think I've ever heard them talk about before, was they wanted to focus on a boss that was difficult to kill the first time, but wasn't miserable and tedious to kill the 100th time. I think they compared it a lot to Nex for that. Or once again, probably high Invo TOA gets very tedious because you have to keep doing these very intricate mechanics that it just feels tedious. And that is a very hard balance to find, I would assume, because obviously things that are difficult are usually kind of tedious because you have to be very focused for very long periods of time, kind of a thing. And I think the only way to make this boss more difficult would be to sacrifice that goal that they set for themselves and to just add things to the fight that would just overall make it a less enjoyable fight. So from that perspective, I think the difficulty is exactly where it needs to be.
Yeah, because I do see the perspective, and I did say earlier that I actually agreed with you that it wasn't in-game content, but I've actually flipped my mind on that, and I'd say it's in-game, but it's not ultra in-game content. So And I know that that's like, adding a word in front of it. But, it's definitely not as difficult as Coliseum or Inferno. I'd say it's on par difficulty with Nex, potentially. It might be a little bit easier and more accessible than Nex, to be honest. Because Nex, you just take a bunch of damage, and it's basically just a brew simulator. So, but, as the difficulty with Nex's fight, it's not super hard, or there's only 8 mechanics that you have to know about or watch out for. So it's not super hard. It's just the boss. It's a long fight, and you got to keep chugging. And it's really just a supply thing. And I think that's sort of something that they're leaning away from, which I can appreciate, is difficulty equaling supply usage. Because think about when the Inferno was first released. Inferno was a supply game. So do you have enough restore? Do you have enough brew? Do you have enough range pot to get through the waves? Can you prayer flick? Can you do all this stuff? But then you look at the Coliseum, and it's less about supply usage and more about just the actual skill itself of flicking the prayers between a manticore and a mage that's on you, or figuring out how to actually solve the waves. And so I think they've gotten away from the in-game equal supply usage, which I can really appreciate. So kind of roping that all back in.
Go
ahead.
Well, I was just going to say one little interruption, just to also, in that same vein, Yama is very low on bullshit chip damage.
Yes.
Which is also in that same, just supply usage for supply usage's sake.
Exactly, yeah. Yama has just a little bit of chip damage. Everything is readable. You can predict all of the attacks that are coming. You have a big window to predict them. But if you miss them, you're going to get smacked a little bit. Not too much, I've noticed, depending on the gear that you're in. But if you get hit by a mage attack, you're probably going to take a 20 or take a 25. So yeah, I agree. I think they've really sort of mastered what quote unquote in-game is, and what players want and what they don't want. And so, that's all I gotta say.
And I think, no, and I think you're kind of calling yourself out for the use of ultra in-game, but you bring up a really interesting point, because you used as your examples Coliseum and Inferno, and I would add in Blood Torva. And also potentially we're recording this Thursday night. Tomorrow, they're going to put the contracts in the game, I believe. And that is supposed to ultra in-gamify this boss, similar to the Awakener's Orbs. But those 4 things I just used as an example have one thing in common, which is those are all things you hypothetically only ever need to do once. And maybe that is a great design of these quote unquote ultra in game, is that it is something that is so hard, because they can lean into that because they know you only have to do it once, as opposed to Yama, which you might have to go to 1,000+ KC to get the thing that you want from them. And so maybe you don't want to have to be constantly just sweating and have your hands shaking for 1,000 KC, but okay, for your first Inferno cape, for a quiver, for Blood Torva, for the White Oath plate, that makes sense to reserve the hardest of hard difficulty for things that are just this one-time achievement.
Yeah, I agree with that. Totally agree. The quote-unquote ultra in-game content is a one-and-done sort of thing, but can be repeated if you choose to do so for any specific reason, i.e. speed runs or
psychopath.
Whatever. But I know with the contract system, we can kind of segue, I guess, into the contracts themselves. There are contracts that are going to be phenomenal moneymakers as of right now. There's a contract that guarantees you an Oath Piece plate. That's crazy. I mean, as of recording, the helm is not as expensive, probably around 40 or 50 mil, but the chest and legs are like 150, 160 mil a pop, which is just crazy.
Yeah.
So, it's there's going to be a contract that if you complete it, you're guaranteed you don't get to choose which one, I don't think, but it's a 2 out of 3 chance that you're making 150 mil, and a 1 out of 3 chance that you're probably losing money, depending on how expensive the contracts are. But that's like a cool implementation as a main account for hyper flexing your skill. This could be like an incredible moneymaker, super high risk, super high reward, which I would imagine that most in-game players would like. I don't think I'm at that point yet. I probably won't be trying out the contracts on release.
Maybe you can grind out the diabolical worm contract.
Oh yeah,
niche moneymaker there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, and that's what's funny. I realized like I'm ranting about the difficulty, and we haven't even seen the release of the extra difficulty version of this boss.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, it's a complete contradiction. Because, and I hope that they do reserve that ultra in-game, super ridiculously difficult. I don't even know what that looks like. I hope it's not just everything's a one shot and that's call it a day kind of a thing. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I feel like I'm as excited as I was for release to see what these are going to look like. I guess tomorrow, I have no idea. But yeah, so we can kind of segue to the contracts a little bit. So I guess to explain just overall for people, so the contract system is meant to function similar to the Awakener's Orbs to get the Blood Torva, but in I would say a much more fleshed out and interesting way. Yama is known as the Master of Contracts, and you have this potential for a drop to be a contract. And the contract basically says, if you agree to compete for this, so you're giving up the contract, you give it to Yama, and if you get the KC, then you're going to get this guaranteed drop. Is that an accurate summary?
Yes, yeah. So they did just add this as well. I don't know if you super read the blog post today, but there are 2 pretty major changes that they made to the contract system as before when they were talking about them. So the first thing is, if you complete the contract, you get it back. So it's
really?
not like the Awakener's Orbs where it's a use and lose situation. It's a use if you actually beat it, you get the contract back. If you lose it or if you die, then you lose the contract. So that was a pretty major change. That's
worrisome.
So, and then the second thing is, I actually can't remember the second thing that I was going to say. Oh, the second major change. They actually said that, and one of the gripes that people were having was that these contracts were you're required to do it solo. They actually changed it to where the lesser tier contracts, so the ones that aren't as, I guess, interesting to get, can actually be duoed now. So you can actually duo a contract with a partner, which is pretty cool.
That is just such you're just describing this. Once again, just this beautiful progression of like, I feel like I've mastered the boss. I want to try to do the harder difficulty. I can do it with a partner. I feel like I've mastered that. I'm going to start to do the higher difficulty solo. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a fan of it. I do wish that they made the contracts originally for duos. I think that would have been so cool for there to be this contract that you have to have a duo with that is of similar caliber to you or enough to actually do the content for both of you guys to get these oath plate armor upgrades, or not upgrades, but cosmetics. But I understand that like you don't want to be gatekept by somebody else having to have a duo partner and or being able to be quote unquote carried by your duo partner. So I understand.
Yeah, that's the first place my mind goes for that, is like that adds a little bit of like, obviously Inferno cape, you bought your cape, there's all that culture, but if every single one of them was duo only, that would definitely add to like, oh, you got the white armor, like who is your teammate? Like I could see that becoming really toxic really quickly. And at the end of the day, I do think that it makes sense that the ultimate challenge would be doing this duo boss solo. which I do want to loop back around because I still want to complain. And going back, we got on this whole thing about difficulty, and going back to in-game duo boss, I want to talk about the second lie, which is duo. So long story short, the solo fight is almost entirely identical to the duo fight. I think my biggest disappointment from Yama is that there's pretty much no mechanics that are 100% dependent on having two people. And there's nothing where there's been emergent gameplay of like quote unquote roles with the melee, like you have a tank, but there's no like defined things that one person has to do while another person does another thing. And when you go to solo, it's basically just a longer fight. And I feel like that is the biggest missed opportunity for something that is specifically a duo boss, that there's nothing that has to be duoed. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. And it does make me sad because I didn't perform the calculations myself, but from what I've been understanding and hearing is it's actually quicker to get your oath plate pieces by doing the content solo rather than doing it duo. So the meta is to do it solo, which is just so sad and unfortunate to me. It just feels like it just sort of, they just keep doing that. Yeah. It's always better to do it solo than it is to do it in a group, which I guess I understand, but I don't understand. Like, they want people to not rely on having a group mate to get this gear or get this content or dip their toe into the content or whatever, which I totally understand. But at some point when you're marketing something as duo, as a raid, it shouldn't be best to just solo it all by yourself. I don't think the best rate should be from soloing, and it shouldn't be faster to get the things that you want from soloing when it's marketed as a duo or a raid or something like that.
As it stands, the only two pieces of content in the game where it's like completely inefficient to solo would be Tob and Nex. Both of those have both been soloed, and it's a big achievement. It takes all kinds of crazy maneuvers and mechanics and all this like manipulation of the code and stuff. All these, it's a big achievement, and it takes a long time. It's inefficient, and yeah, I think that was how I thought Yama was going to be, like a solo kill. Like I thought that doing a solo kill would just be what it took to get the oath plate upgrade, kind of a thing. Like it would be like, oh well, this requires two people, and you have to figure out some crazy way. You have to bring your pet rock and drop it on this spot for when you run over. That was the original duo boss, was getting to DKs. But yeah, it's not like if you like the current meta right now of having two people melee, basically one person who's tanking is taking care of all of the special attacks, and the second person could hypothetically walk away from their computer because they're just AFK stabbing the boss in the back. And yeah, just it doesn't feel like something that was designed for two people. It just feels like it was a 1 to 2 player max party size kind of a thing.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah,
and I know that like on like that 5:30 a.m. when we were first seeing the boss, everybody thought that only one person got sent to fight the judge between the phases. I say everybody, just I guess our when we were in voice chat, it was like, oh, one of you gets sent away and the other one has to like stay alive while they're doing that or something. And then it's like, no, both people get sent to exactly the same scenario and have to solve the exact same kind of puzzle mechanic at the same time. And I don't know why it wasn't like you get sent to these two different things, and if you have to both solve it and work together. I don't know. There's not that like feeling of working together, except for things that have come from emergent gameplay, like the orb skip. The orb skip, you both have to move to different color glyphs, right? And so that is this like coordinated teamwork movement that seems to be, for the most part, unintended. And that's just something that has come from the players because you're in a duo, because you're working together.
I hate to burst your bubble.
Oh,
you can do that solo, sadly. Not sadly, but it is soloable. It is like doable. But keep going. I know.
No. I mean, I know it's frustrating.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. And that's why I bring it up, is because literally every single mechanic does not require a duo or any strange, weird mechanic to do it solo. It's just, you can do the exact same thing solo as you do with your buddy. It just takes longer because you don't have as much DPS, which is such a shame. Like, I'm going to bring back TOA because that's just the theme of this podcast is Yama and TOA. It reminds me of like the Kefri puzzle where you have like two sides and you're supposed to be solving these puzzles in tandem. But then when you solo TOA, it's like, oh, I just cross over the barrier and now I don't have to solve 2 out of the 4 puzzles. And it's like, I don't know. Just it's not what I was hoping for and not what I was looking for. But I mean, who knows? Maybe if they did release a duo boss that absolutely required you to have a duo, we'd be like, oh my God, I can't believe that you're required to have a buddy to do this, or you have to like eat the boulder or something. Like, I don't know.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right, because we've all seen that Reddit post that says that gear should not be gatekept behind group content, and specifically it's usually about Tob, because Tob is kind of the one thing. Well, but next you can mass. Hypothetically, you could get all your drops from masses and never have to like talk to another human being. But like Tob that's like the one thing where you need like at least 2 other people and you have to somewhat communicate with them, which is weird because you're in your mom's basement and you don't like talking to people and people are scary. You turn on Entity Hider and you turn public chat off so you can pretend that this is a solo game. And if I'm being honest, I hate people too, and I don't like group content. But when they advertise it as a duo boss, and like I'm setting aside like I'm building up the social like stamina. I've been doing like social cardio for the past like couple months so that I can actually hop in a voice chat with people and want to run group content. And then when it comes out and the meta is to solo it, that's what's so disappointing about it.
Yeah, I'll say I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum, and it may be because I'm a main account over here and not an iron, so I don't play alone. No, but I really enjoy group content. It's the reason that I love this game so much. If there wasn't group content and there wasn't things to do, and we didn't have a great community behind us to actually do this content, I wouldn't be playing. I don't think. I would have just been chopping trees till I got 99 wood cutting, and then I would have logged out and never touched this game again. So I'm sort of on the opposite end where like I love group content and it's what I thoroughly enjoy about this game. And so it was disappointing for me whenever they were saying that it's going to be a duo boss. You're going to have a buddy to do it. And then I read the Reddit thread and the Jmons are like, of course it's soloable, but it's not going to be as efficient to solo it. It's going to be more efficient to duo. And then come to release, it's more efficient to solo than it is to duo. And I don't know if you have any other points about that, but that can sort of segue into another gripe that we have in the big controversy. But if you have any more points on that, you want to touch on any of those.
No, I think we can transition into probably the biggest part of this conversation, which is the rewards from the boss, the drops from Yama. Before we get into like every bit of that, let me just run through real quick all of the unique drops from Yama, which I'm not frantically trying to pull up right now. I definitely prepared. Okay. So starting from like least to most interesting, we had what are they called? The diabolic worms, which is not even on the collection log, but it's a drop that increases the speed of your catch rates at anglerfish. And I have tested this and it is awesome. I went to anglerfish with spirit flakes, diabolic worms, Rada's blessing 4, and oh my gosh, I had a full fish barrel and inventory in the time it would take me to like get an inventory of lobsters. It was beautiful. And I wish they dropped in higher quantity, but I think I have 80 Yama KC and I've probably gotten like 300 diabolic worms. So I think if I were to grind this until I got the full armor, I would probably have a very high amount of those. So it's probably balanced just right. But I always want more of that because it's going to be one of those things where I end up never wanting to do anglers without them. So I found those to be pretty cool. There's the barrel of demonic tallow, which makes the surge potion. That's been a bank filler for me. I haven't messed with any of that yet. Have you tested out the diabolic worms or have you tested out the surge potions?
I haven't. I probably should try out the surge potions, but I have not done them yet. So I heard they're pretty good for speed runs, and I don't know if I'll ever really use them, to be honest, but they're an option and they seem pretty cool.
There hasn't been any, I don't think there's any kind of in the meta for using them at Yama, is there?
No, not currently, because you can death charge off of the orbs as well as what's the thing you teleport to called? I can't remember. The Guardian.
The Judge.
The Judge, thank you. You can use death charge on the Judge, and so you typically just have one person use the Soul Horn spec, and then one person use an Elder Maul, and that's like per phase, or at least just in T1, and so you're not really using that much spec inside of Yama.
Yeah, and that is going back a little bit, but one of the annoying modern boss designs that Jagex did have on this is the defense reduction cap, which is, it's perfectly understandable why they would have that, but it is like, we sent one Warhammer. All right, that's all the defense reduction we need. Which, I guess the alternative to that is, hey, we can send all of our DPS specs now, but it doesn't seem like a super, well, this is probably just showing my ignorance, but it doesn't seem like a super spec important boss compared to some of the other ones.
No, it's definitely not. You just reduce the defense one time and then you're pretty much good to go. And then you can send like your Burning Claw spec if you want to. And yeah.
God, I need to get those. And the worst thing on the entire drop table, the Chasm Teleport Scroll, which is just an absolute joke because something cool that they did is they added new agility shortcuts to the Chasm of Fire so that people could get right to the boss fight. But, people like me who aren't quite there, they have to pre-pot a Summer Pie to get down that chain. I just need a couple more agility levels. But the crazy thing is that the teleport to the boss that is dropped by the boss teleports you still outside of that agility shortcut. So you still have to use the agility shortcut. Sorry, I won't go on for 5 hours about it, but that one's really silly. And then there's on the last of the kind of unique non-uniques is the Aether Catalyst, which lets you combine your soul and cosmic runes into, are they still just called cosmic soul runes?
I think it's called like CAD. Let me look it up. I'm actually not 100% sure.
Hold on, I got you. Oh, I'm stupid. They're just called the Aether runes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was going to say, I don't think it was, I think they did end up changing it.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, it looks like there's a chance of getting demonic dung. You know what? I have never gotten that, and I'm going to take great pride that I have not gotten that drop.
Yeah, that is, you have to do less than, I think, 15% on the boss, which if you're doing, that's like almost impossible to do less than 15%. It's very hard. Let me rephrase that. You'd have to purposely try to get the demonic dung, which might be a flex item. Who knows?
I am in real time listening to, it says, when receiving demonic dung, a special sound effect will play. And I just listened to a fart noise that is in the game.
I could have to listen to that after this podcast. That's funny.
That was I believe last week or the week before on the other changes, they added a similar fart noise to TOA when you get dung.
Oh, that's interesting.
So
let me play it. It's on the wiki right now. I'm going to listen to it. That is funny. That is actually really funny.
I love that. All right, sorry. So moving on to the actual interesting parts of this, we have the Forgotten Lockbox, which is becoming kind of another standard boss drop, which is a box that has, it's kind of the cache of runes kind of thing. It'll have a pretty valuable drop in it, but they're trying something new this time around. The Forgotten Lockbox can actually give you some good stuff. I haven't experienced it firsthand, but I know you can get, can you get the entire unique table from it?
Yep. Yeah.
Yes, it looks like you can.
You can. It's very similar to like the Muspa one, where you can get the Venator shard from the frozen cache.
Oh, okay.
So it's not the first time they've done it, but it is a very cool, like, I guess it's like a quote unquote second roll, which I kind of like, but I also kind of don't like at the same time. Because I'm like, just roll if I get the piece or not. I don't want to like double chance, but I say that, but every time I get the Forgotten Lockbox, I go, it could be.
Yeah, I'm never gonna say no. I'm not gonna just leave it on the ground. I'm definitely gonna open it.
Oh yeah, exactly. Like I'm not gonna not open it, but I do know that it is pretty rare to get an oath plate piece from the.
It's like 1 in 400 for one of them.
Yeah, which is pretty crazy, and I'm pretty sure we have somebody in the CC who got, I want to say 2 already from a lockbox. I know he got one. I don't know if he got a second one.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then we have, and this is probably the one I'm going to need the most kind of help with, is the dossier, which is, I guess, kind of basically like a manila folder with a contract in it. And so it seems like, so I've only gotten this once and I got teleports from it, which I was told is like the meme drop.
Yep.
So it seems like you can either get teleports or you can get a contract, which there's a wide variety of contracts, which once again, the contracts are a harder boss fight for a guaranteed drop, which is pretty cool. And it seems like for the most part, people have been opening these up and selling the contracts off.
Yeah, you can also get the double death charge upgrade. That's another piece you can get. It's pretty common from it. It's a 1 in 3, and then I think it's guaranteed after 100 Yama kills. The next one that you get or open will be a death charge upgrade, which is interesting. So it's a guaranteed drop after 100 KC.
And is that death charge upgrade only from the dossier? You can't get it just as a straight up drop? Because I'm not seeing it on the drop table.
Yeah,
okay,
it's only from the dossier, correct.
Interesting. Okay, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it is a 1 in 3, and then once you get it the first time, you can't get it again. And then, like I said, after 100 KC, the next dossier that you open will 100% contain the death charge upgrade.
So, do you think it's weird? I've been very surprised by this. I of course am a iron who has ascended the measly mains and their dirty economy and stuff. I think it's so strange that people are getting these contracts and selling them when the actual, and the people who are buying them when the contracts aren't even out yet. By the time this podcast comes out, I'm sure the contracts will be out. But, obviously, I'm sure the market imploded today when it said that they're repeatable, because you could use the same one more than once, because that obviously people were probably stacking those in the same way that they were with Awakener's orbs. But yeah, I just think that's wild from both perspectives of like, this thing could be way more valuable than you think it's going to be once the actual contracts come out, and vice versa.
It's all about the gamble. It's about whether you gamble that's going to go up or going to go down. And that's the thing is like, so I've gotten 5 contracts, and I've sold them all instantaneously because I don't like risk. And so I don't want to assume that it's going to go up or go down. Because typically you always assume that when a piece of content comes out, you want to insta sell everything that you get for like the first week or two, because that's typically when the prices are the highest. But with these contracts, it's a little bit different. But I think it's only different because of the variability in the contracts and the way that Jagex has gone back and forth on their stance on the contracts themselves. The first ones, well, they're not duo. Okay, well, now they're duo. Okay, well, you can't repeat them. It's very similar to Awakened Orbs. Okay, well, now you can repeat them and you get it guaranteed back if you complete the contract. So it's very like wishy-washy. And for the first couple of days, I think we just got the description for all of the contracts. Like we now know what is going to entail in the fight. But before that, you didn't know what the fight entailed. So you didn't know how many you would need to, let's say, go for the Oathplate recolor. If the fight is very similar to the Awakened, it's going to take a long time and a lot of kills for you to get that. I don't remember how many orbs it took all the HLC to get the first Blood Torba, but I would imagine it took a lot. And so as a buyer, you're wanting to stack up on 50 or 100 because you want to be the first one to get the Oathplate recolor. And you don't know how many attempts it's going to take you because you don't know how hard it's going to be. So I see it on both ends as I was on the seller's end of it. And I can understand the buyer's end where like the end game buyers, GP doesn't matter to them at all. Like they have tens of 50s of bills and one bill on contracts means nothing to them. Very similar to like how they were with Awakened Orbs, or they're buying them at like 5 mil a pop because they just want to be the first one to do it. And money's not an issue. They already have all their gear. So they have cash on cash just sitting there in third age. You know what I mean? So I get it on both ends of it.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing about the HLC that we have to remember is they need us. They can only buy this stuff on the GE because we're providing it to them. So
they can only get so much on their own.
That's right. Never let them win. No, that actually, I think that does make sense. I think probably the thing that brings it into the most clarity is how many people there are that just money means nothing to them. It's unfathomable to me that people are going to buy 50 contracts that are 10 times more than they're probably worth just because they can and they don't care. And even when I was fully in the main life, I hated that whole playing the market thing and all that kind of stuff. It just, I have never successfully flipped anything on the GE. I have lost so much money.
I can give you the easiest flip, Trey. Put in a buy offer for some fire runes for under the med price, and then sell them for the med price. And that's the easiest flip you could ever do. It's not going to be quick and it's not going to be great money, but it's consistent money. And that's the advice I can give you.
That feels like when I would buy the GE buy limit of feathers for 1 GP and then sell them for 2 GP.
Yes, exactly.
Like, wow,
that's a profit right there, man. That is a profit.
That's right. Yeah. That'll profit me, I think, like $50K or something. So, yeah, the contract, the dossier with the contract is so interesting. It's kind of cool that it is kind of the same as the lockbox, where once again, it's kind of that purple chest kind of idea where you see a drop, you get the dopamine from the drop, but then you get the second chance at dopamine from opening it. That's kind of cool. They have that for 2 different things on this boss with you can get some pretty high rewards from those. And the next of the kind of getting into the big drops here, we have the Soul Flame Horn, which is definitely by far the most unique thing that you can get from this boss for use outside of the boss.
Actually, before we move on, I think I got to speak up for the high level Ironmen out there.
Okay,
because I do feel for them. I actually don't really like the dossiers in the way that it dropped the contracts. And the reason being, you need so many contracts to get the Oathplate armor upgrade. You need 5 separate contracts that you have to beat for the Oathplate armor. And
oh wow,
I feel for the Ironmen that are out there that this seems impossible to get your Oathplate recolor, because you're relying on these purely RNG drops to get these contracts just so that you can do a single attempt of the Oathplate recolor or the flex item. And it's like so different than the Awakener's orbs, which they said that the contracts were supposed to be a better version of the Awakener's orbs. But I just don't see how it's better than the orbs currently. Because the orbs, you can reasonably stack 10, 15 orbs on your way to getting Virtus or getting your Vestige or whatever it is. But with the armor recolor and the contracts, the dossier is a 1 in 20 drop. And then each contract that you need is a 1 in 33. And you need 5 separate contracts to get the Oath Plate recolor, which is just crazy. That's like, those are like astronomical numbers, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. I had no idea that was how it worked.
And I'm going to confirm really quickly that you need all 5 pieces for, alongside the bottom, middle, right, and top is used to create the purifying sigil to convert the Oath Plate armor to radiant. Yeah, so you need 5 separate contracts with 5 separate drops to convert it, which is crazy. And that just sounds crazy, right? Like, I don't know. That doesn't sound good.
I saw something about killing it only with Crush. Is it 5 because is it like every attack style, like the 3 melees and then range and mage only? Is that the 5 different ones, or am I completely off base?
You're not. Yeah, I mean, yes. I would say, I mean, I don't know for a fact yet, but like, for example, one of the challenges for it is Yama drains the challenger's stamina passively. Yama drains the challenger's stamina upon dealing damage. The challenger loses upon reaching 0 stamina. Yama is no longer weak to Demon Bane weaponry, and the challenge must be alone. So
that was all one?
Yeah, that was just one. And that was for the top sigil. Then the next one, the bottom sigil. The glyphs protect you for less time, and they're more punishing. Yama is now weak to Crush and nothing else. Challenger's prayer bonus affects their drain rate inversely. Challengers, that's crazy.
Wait, what? That's awesome.
That's a pretty cool mechanic. Challenger's prayer bonus increases the damage that they deal, and the challenger must be alone. So it seems like everything is a little bit, it's not necessarily like you have to kill it with range. Now you got to kill it with slash. Now you got to, it seems like they're changing up like what's required to get the kills, which I like.
No, that sounds...
it sounds really cool. I just feel bad for the Ironman because as a main, it's like, oh yeah, just buy them on the GE. Who cares?
Yeah.
But as Irons, it's like you have to get 5 separate ones that is a 1 in 20 to get the dossier. Then it's a 1 in 33 to actually roll the contract itself, which that just doesn't sit well with me. That just seems crazy.
So first, hold on. I'm going to get to your point in a second, but just to understand that I heard that correctly. So it said that your prayer bonus affects your prayer inversely. So high prayer bonus means your prayer will drain super quickly.
Yep.
But also, the higher your prayer bonus, the more damage you'll do.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is a very cool mechanic that I like a lot. Yeah. I think that's very cool.
So why could it not just be you get a contract that's like an Awakener's Orb, and you still have these 5 different fights? You just get one contract, and then you decide which one of those fights it'll be for.
Couldn't agree more.
That seems like that
would
solve. Okay. Yeah, that seems like the obvious solve.
I think it's because they wanted to get away from the Awakener's Orbs because everybody hated them so much. But the reason people hated them was because they were rare. It wasn't because people don't like the fact that you have to like pay to do this in-game content. It's the fact that the Awakener's Orbs are like $1 mil a pop and they're rare to get for Ironman. And so you're really only attempting Blorva if you're rich and have, all the gear that you could ever want in your life, and you have excess cash to blow 300 mil on orbs. You know what I mean? So yeah, their point was that they're trying to get away from the Awakener's Orbs, but it seems like they just made it worse. But you can farm the contracts through these weird, like, you can like kill lesser demons that it's not a Slayer task, but it's like a Slayer task where you have to kill them in a certain way in the Chasm of Fire, and then you have a chance of getting the contract.
Isn't that only for the lower tier ones?
Maybe.
I think I was looking at that because I was like,
Maybe.
oh, this is be a cool way. And there's only 4 of them that you can get from demons.
Then you're probably right then. Okay, I just spoke then.
No, that's a really hard balance.
Oh, no. You can get them from the Chasm of Fire.
Really?
Yeah, so it's they don't have the rarity yet on the demons in the Chasm of Fire, but you can get the Oathblade recolor from those.
Well, I can tell you what I think is the easiest solution that will never happen, and I'll just say it: different drop rates for irons and mains.
How dare you?
I know. I can't even say it with a straight face. I know that's not realistic or how the game should work, but yeah, that just seems super unfair.
Yeah, to me, this is like the most unfair system for Iron Men ever. Like, this just doesn't seem right to me. I don't like it. I think it's way too rare. Like, it's cool that it adds value to the contract so that you'll always want to go back to Yama for the contracts, but it's just so rare for Iron Man. Like, that's just not, we have some irons in the clan that I'm sure would love to attempt it, but I mean, imagine you have to have a main account to even learn the content. Like, you send one attempt that took you 600 KC to get one contract, and then you die. Now you got to do another 600 KC to go on rate for another contract. That just doesn't sit well with me.
It almost, if you get a contract, you almost have to treat it like you're a high level hardcore.
Yeah.
Where you make it brainless on your main before you even try it on your iron.
Yeah. And like, I assume if you telly out, you still lose it. So like, it just seems like a way worse version of Awakener's Orbs, which they know everybody hates. And they've stated that they understand that everybody hates how the orb system is and that they're not doing it with these contracts. But here we are. What it invokes for me, and this is not the thing you want it to be compared to, is the Champion's Cape. We have these super rare drops you have to go for so that you can go into a fight to complete that scroll. But yeah, we're talking about like Earth Warriors as opposed to a super high level boss that's just... I think step 1 should just be the thing where it's just one contract and then you decide which one it goes towards. That seems like that would help a lot. So it's not, you're not getting dupes of the leg one when you just need the helmet one. I mean, God, that sounds horrible. Yeah.
That seems like that will at least, oh my God, I'm just imagining that. Like, just
blows
getting
my
a
mind.
dupe.
This is how they chose to do it.
No shot that survives until even when this podcast is released. At least I hope.
I'm pretty sure it is, because they pretty much, I mean, this is just the way that it's going to be. And I think the meta is to farm those lesser demons or greater demons in the Chasm of Fire, which is also unfortunate because they had mentioned that the best way to get these contracts was going to be to do the boss to prepare yourself for the fights. But then again, they said that duo was going to be the best, and we are solo as the meta. And now it's, okay, well, if you want to get these scrolls to attempt the higher level version, go kill these lesser demons on quote unquote task, and then you get a chance of getting these, which, it just doesn't sit right with me.
At the risk of it being extremely complicated, I wonder if there was a system to where you could do like a halfway version of the contract boss, where it had like, I don't know, like some kind of reduced version of those same mechanics, and it had a slightly increased rate of particularly that. I don't know. This is just never mind. This is way too complicated.
Regardless, I think they messed up with the drops, with the and that's just my opinion.
Yeah, that is. I'm just shocked that you're the first person I've heard talk about this, and I might just be the communities that I'm kind of follow as opposed to the higher level communities, but still, like, I'm shocked that this isn't the headline as opposed to what we're about to get to, which has been the dominant conversation around this boss. Mm-hmm. That is really surprising. Okay, well, I guess go write in Falador about that one. That's kind of crazy to me. But moving along, let's get to the Soul Flame Horn. This is an item that it's definitely the most unique item as far as like something we haven't really seen done in the game. There's the red gem at TOA, but that's kind of very niche and hardly ever used. But the Soul Flame Horn is an item that when you blow it, it increases it makes the subsequent special attacks from your teammates a guaranteed hit. Is that an accurate way of describing it?
Yes, it also makes your next special attack within like a certain window also a guaranteed hit. So if you were to also spec, it would be guaranteed.
Beautiful.
But you're not able to use it just on yourself. You have to have somebody around. So you can't just like stand, like you can't bring it into like Vorkath and use the horn and then guarantee a spec. You have to have somebody in either the fight or the instance with you that's within like a certain amount of tiles from you.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, it's even more restricted for Ironman. I think you can only use it in like 5 or 6 pieces of content.
Yeah, it's pretty much. The content that you would want to use it in anyways. It's just to prevent from like boosting XP rates.
Yeah, no, it's a cool item. It's I'm really surprised. I think it's down to like 15 mil already. I think it's kind of a cool idea. It's a cool drop. It's not the flashiest thing in the world. It's not like the most exciting drop. At least from my perspective, it's a weird, I don't know. It's a weird kind of concept in my mind because it's like when you get the drop, you're basically, it's like I'm volunteering to be the like support role now for this group content, and I'm just start handing my purples over to everyone else in the raid because now they're gonna get like these super buff specs. Maybe that's a cynical way of looking at it, but I don't know. It's a weird weapon that is going to be really great to have for raids and stuff. And I'm wondering if the reduced price is maybe because in a raid only one person hypothetically needs to have it.
Yeah.
I'm not super sure though.
Yeah, I think only one person would typically need to have it, and you'd be like the designated horn person, I guess. An interesting thing that when they were proposing this, they were saying that Ironman had to receive the drop before you're able to like.
Oh, they could benefit.
Yeah, benefit from it. But now it looks like you don't have to receive the drop as an Ironman, and you can just get the effects of it.
Huh. I mean, I'm glad. Yeah, that would have been really. That would have. I mean, how would they even? I mean, I guess they would be pretty easy to code that, but that would be really annoying. Yeah, you raid with people. Oh man, and then imagine the
gatekeeping.
Imagine the gatekeeping. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Show me your Yama log before I'll run a raid with you. Yeah, I'm glad they didn't go through with that. That would have just been annoying and confusing and overly complicated.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, I don't have much to say about the Soul Flame Horn. It's a cool drop. It's the kind of drop that I feel like will be more exciting in context of a future piece of content potentially, which ironically is how I felt about the Demon Bane weapons, and that turned out to be pretty true. So
yeah, they have Jagex has they're notorious for making an item not useful, and then 6 months down the road or a year down the road, they make it super useful. Like think about remember when the Venator bow came out and everybody was like, this is the most useless piece of garbage I've ever seen in my entire life. And then now you look at the Venator bow and it's used at Whisperer, it's used at Coliseum for speed runs, and you can also just use it for Colo in general. It has a lot of good niche uses and it's pretty expensive. But like when it was first released, I remember it was pretty cheap because there just wasn't a use for it besides like AFKing Slayer, and it just wasn't very used. So I have a feeling that it's probably going to be used later on at a new piece of content, but don't quote me on it. Don't start buying your horns for cheap and expecting them to rise. I don't know if that's going to happen. I just have a feeling that that's what they're leaning towards.
And then side note, as someone who plays with game sounds, I'm extremely disappointed that there's not a horn blowing noise. Which would, I mean, apart from how it would be cool, would actually be really helpful because I have to stare at my chat box to see the chat notification that the horn was blown. So I know I'm good to spec. But I mean, you need that, like that Lord of the Rings.
I couldn't agree with you more because, I'll just throw this in there really quickly. One of the things I love about Yama is the snap. They did the snap so perfectly.
Oh my gosh.
And it was such a down. I was so upset when the soul flame horn did not have a good sound effect to it. I was like, this is just some really missed potential because of how good y'all did with that snap.
Dude, that snap is downright ASMR.
Yes. It's so good.
I've gotten much more confident or comfortable with the boss to where I don't think it's necessary anymore. But I remember learning it. I was very frustrated that there's a snap sound effect when he's not doing an auto attack, mostly during the enraged phase. But that minor gripe aside, once again, more than just how just clean and nice it sounds. It's just, it really adds a great feel to the fight because it's like, it adds that rhythm.
Agreed.
That feels like that's like the first beat of, it's just like, it starts off I'm forgetting all my musical terminology here, but it's the one of the beat. Mm-hmm. And it's that, I love that. It adds that extra rhythm to it. So the last drop we'll mention before we get into the big one is the pet is awesome.
Yes.
It's huge.
Oh yeah.
It looks great. And it's got attitude. I haven't gotten the pet, but I've seen it from other people. When you get the pet drop, the pet goes, "Oh no," it's great. And it has a few more text that it will say. Yeah. So it's got a little attitude to it and it's awesome.
This is crazy. I'm reading the wiki on this. I didn't know this. The pet is not a tertiary drop. It actually replaces the item drop that you were supposed to get.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Huh. Which is the first of its kind. Which is weird. I was just reading about it a little bit and it says, note that unlike other boss pets, the Yami pet is not a tertiary drop and receiving him will replace the player's item drop for that kill. Which, that's crazy.
Huh. Why would they do that?
I wonder if it's because it was bugged. Not bugged. They did it on purpose where on release date, you couldn't get the pet because they were saving it for that contract. And then people were like, okay, we've done hundreds of thousands of kills and there's not a single pet in the game. Why isn't there a pet in the game? And they're like, oh shoot, we messed up. Okay, well now we added it as a drop. So I wonder if it's going to change or if this is how it was actually intended. I don't know.
Jagex is consistently keeping us on our toes to whether it is smart to grind the heck out of something the second it comes out or to wait a month.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, let's get into the most controversial, the big thing everybody's been angry and mad about. And that is the Oath Plate armor and how it looks. The Oath Plate armor looks awesome. I cannot believe that I've seen so much negativity around how the Oath Plate armor looks. I think it looks super sweet, and I'm at a loss for words for how people are so negative about it. I've seen memes talking about how stupid it looks. I think it's as cool as any of the other best of slot armor sets in the game. Where do you land, Mitty?
I like the recolor.
Okay.
I think it looks cool. I just wish that they chose a different color scheme.
The resemblance to the hardcore Iron Man armor is objectively the worst part.
Yeah. If it was a different color, I'd really like it. Personally, I hate that it looks just like the hardcore Iron Man color.
Yeah,
I like any other color. It looks phenomenal. Like
very unfortunate.
Yeah.
No, I 100% agree.
The white looks so good. I love the recolored. It looks so clean. Might be the best armor in the game.
You better go get it then.
Oh, okay.
The only issue I have with the white is I'm just worried about how it's going to look when you put on all of the peripherals, which is for the most part going to be like red and black, your Inferno cape and your prims and all that kind of stuff. But that's always the RuneScape issue.
Yeah, just wait till the new Delve boss has new boots. It'll match this armor. So
I
don't
hope
you worry
so.
about it.
Okay, I'm bearing the lead here. Let's talk about the Oathplate armor. So Oathplate was kind of proposed as a slightly lesser, slightly side grade alternative to Torva. I think it was kind of in essence meant to be the like lower damage, higher accuracy option. Purely speaking from the statistical side of it, like it was the kind of thing, kind of like the Fang, where it might do a little less damage unless a boss has high defense and it's higher accuracy. So, that we've been seeing so much of that in the game recently, where you have a weapon that's good if they have low defense because it just bonks out a ton of damage, but then you have this alternative weapon in the same attack style that is either slower or less damage, but it's higher accuracy for those high defense monsters. And Jagex has also been pumping a bunch of almost all of the bosses they've released since like TOA have had much higher defenses. And so they've really been kind of separating the reward space for things into high accuracy versus like higher damage. And Oathplate is kind of the melee, best in slot melee version of that. And so kind of what it has turned into controversy is a ton of Oathplate has been dumped into the game, and all of the nerds have run the numbers, and they're basically saying for the most part, it's equal to, if not completely better than Torva for the majority of like content in this game. And yeah, that's been what people have been mad about. And there's been all kinds of solutions. There's been people who are saying that's inaccurate. So where did you kind of land in this controversy, Mitty?
It is definitely best in slot at a lot of content that I enjoy doing and that I do. And from my understanding, again, I have not run the numbers myself, so I'm solely kind of just off of the content that I consume. But I'm pretty sure it's roughly like 70% of content that you would use Torva at, you now use Oathplate armor, because it's just objectively better. And one thing to note is Oathplate, the attack bonuses are solely on the slash attack style. So every other attack style doesn't have any bonuses to it. It's solely for slash. So it makes Scythe really good, which is what most people doing in-game content that you're using melee, you're probably going to be using a Scythe if it's a slash boss. And so that's where it becomes super good for things like Tob, Colosseum, Vardorvis, Duke, really anything that you're killing with slash, Chambers, melee hand. If you're killing it with slash, it's better than Torva. So the thing that's unfortunate is that, kind of like you said, it's very cheap. It's very accessible. The full armor gear, let me see if I can find how much it is right now. When I bought it, I bought my top and bottom for 150 mil a pop. So it was like 340 mil, 350 mil whenever I bought it. Oh man, that's depressing.
I think it dropped a lot more than that.
Yes, the current set, the cost as of recording on May 22nd is 304 mil. That's for all three pieces. So that is dirt cheap when one piece of Torva is 300 mil.
Exactly.
So it was just sort of sad to see, and I'm in the boat that it's sad to see, because you want something to add value, and you want the content that you do, you want it to have high valuable drops, and you want those items to keep value as a main account, because that's what makes the content fun, making money and enjoying the content itself. It's sort of sad to see just how much has been pumped into the game and how cheap it is, because from a main's perspective, if it's gonna keep dropping in price, then it's probably not going to be worth doing it on a GP per hour basis, which is like sad to me because I really enjoy this piece of content. They did a phenomenal job with it. And it sucks that there's pretty high potential that it's just not going to be worth doing in the long run, which is really unfortunate.
Yeah, and then the funny alternative to that is for Iron Man, it's like you should be doing everything you can to get here as soon as possible and getting this. And I think a question that probably has come up a lot is people just, how did this happen? And I think it goes back 2 hours ago in this conversation to like, this armor was proposed and was voted on and is coming to the game. And that isn't surprising. The thing that was surprising to people was how this boss was so much more easy and accessible than was proposed. And that was a huge part of what people were going on when they were voting for this. It was like, oh, well, this is going to be as difficult, as hard to access as Nex. And so it makes sense that this should be on par reward-wise as Nex. And so I think that's probably where a lot of the anger is coming from, is people saying like, oh, well, I wouldn't have voted for this if I had known that this was going to be a much lower tier accessible boss. And it kind of ends up turning into this thing very similar to TOA, where the most accessible raid has the highest value or most powerful items coming out of it. And I think that's probably where a lot of people's disgruntled dissatisfaction is coming from with this. And I think there's some validity there. And I think there's a ton of reasons why this is so different from a main to an Iron Man. And I one of the reasons I specifically wanted you on, because you're one of the last few mains left in our clan. But yeah, it's funny because, like you said, like we're both saying, it's kind of this inverse of the result of this is that it's really, really good for irons, and it's kind of disappointing for mains.
Yeah, and I see and I understand like how it would kind of be cool on an iron to be able to grind this, but at the same time, I feel like it loses prestige. Like having Torva, it has prestige because the grind associated with Torva is a long one. It requires a lot of gear to get into it, and it takes a while to get the drops themselves. But with the Oath Plate, get 1 synapse, get 2 synapses, and you're just absolutely chilling, and you can get almost best in slot armor with very, very generous drop rates. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
They're very generous. I think upon release, I think it was like 50 hours to complete Oath Plate, which is like just crazy fast for in-game armor. That's all 3 pieces.
Oh yeah.
Like on rate, it's 50 hours to complete. Which, I mean, yeah, it sounds like a lot, but when you take in context what everything else, like armor that's very similar to it, takes 3 times, 4 times as much to complete. I don't know the rates for, I don't know the hours to complete for Torva, but I can tell you it's not 50 and it's not 75. It's way higher. And so Jagex changed the drop rate, which I'm sure you're about to get to. Mm-hmm. They changed the drop rate on the day after release. They actually increased the drop rate by 30% because people were killing the boss so quickly, and there was so much more Oath Plate coming into the game than they were expecting, that day 2 they were like, okay, hot fix, we're upping the drop rate by 30% to help mitigate the amount of Oath Plate that are coming in the game. And I understand that as a game dev, it's hard to determine like our player base because we min-max everything. We find the most efficient route, and we find them like we're just very efficiency based. And so as a dev team, I'm sure it's hard to like plan on that essentially. Like it's kind of hard to, you can't theory craft for the community because the community is going to theory craft ways to do things efficiently. But to be 30% wrong is pretty crazy to me. And 30% with the drop rate still being too low, in my opinion. Please don't hate me. I'm not HLC, I promise. I just want to keep doing Yama with all my friends because I love this content so much. And I'm worried that it's not going to be profitable or as profitable as other content. And so people will stop running it eventually.
Yeah. Well, that post that they had to change the drop rate is going to go down as one of the most infamous posts of Jagex's history. Like them coming out and saying, "Oh, we didn't realize you guys were going to kill it so fast, so we have to do this huge nerf to the drop rates." And not to be too dramatic about it, but I lost a lot of trust in the community because it's like the idea that the developer doesn't even understand. Like, that's the thing. We talked so much about the difficulty of it, and we gave Jagex a lot of credit for like, okay, they put it exactly where it needs to be in terms of difficulty. But when you look at that nerf, that day one nerf for such a huge, like a 30% nerf within 24 hours of the boss's release, really makes it sound like they thought this was going to be more difficult than it is.
Yeah,
and they don't understand the difficulty of their own game, or they don't understand their own player base, which really is not a good look.
Yeah. One thing that also terrifies me is they did the nerf before Dono Fly was a thing. Before there was another massive DPS increase in P3, which made the fight, I would say, 30% quicker. I don't actually know the statistics behind it, but I'm sure it's probably at least 10% quicker to do melee than it is to do mage only. So that's before we started these crazy methods. So they were 30% wrong before we started mid-maxing everything, which is just absurd. Like, that is, I don't know who's running their numbers, but they need to fix it.
Yeah, for real. Yeah. And which is, so Mitty, I know you've been kind of feeling the same thing as I have, which is, this has been such a strange week. This past week we've had, because it's been this panic of, we've been trying to run as much Yama as we possibly can before today, because today was the week one update, and they already nerfed it once, and it hasn't felt like it was enough, like you said. And everybody's been expecting either a drop rate change or a nerf to the armor. And so we've been trying to just pound through Yama every second we possibly can before this week one update. And well, it came out and they didn't actually change either of those things. But I'm so glad that this update came out, because at least it feels like we bought a little bit of time to just keep enjoying the boss and having a good time with it. Because if they had nerfed the drop rates, I feel like we'd see a significant fall off in people. We'd probably see a riot in Falador kind of a thing, and it'd just be a lot of negativity. So I'm glad for the time being we've avoided that. But it just feels like the reward doesn't match the content right now. And that is not healthy for the game. And that's also scary, because it feels like if it's unhealthy for the game, it's going to change. And Jagex is nothing if not inconsistent in how long it takes for them to realize and fix a problem. I mean, we've seen it go 5 years before they fix a problem, and we've seen it go under 24 hours before they fix a problem. So it's weird. So what do you think is the best solution?
I think the drop rates need to be affected. I think, as terrible as that sounds, I feel like this is a Fang 2.0, and everybody loves the Fang. The Fang is a great weapon. It's so powerful for the rate that it's dropped in. The Fang is like under 10 mil right now. I don't even know. It might be like 8 mil. I don't know. It is dirt cheap, and it is one of the best weapons in the game. And comparing that to Scythe, which is 1.6 bill, like, that's crazy. That's just so absurd that two very high in-game weapons have such different prices, and it's all based on the drop rate. It's not based on how good they are in certain content. It's based solely on drop rate, how hard they are to get. Because I don't mind having the Fang in the game. It's a great weapon. It's so fun to use. But man, should that have a higher drop rate. Like, it should not be as common as it is. And I feel like the Oath Plate is if it stays in its current state, it's going to be the same thing as the Fang, where the set's already 300 mil right now. That's before the contract that allows you to get guaranteed oath plate in the game. So high level players are going to be buying these contracts and doing these contracts to guarantee themselves oath plate, which is going to pump more into the game. So the price is already going to drop. And it's only been 1 week, and this in-game armor total is 300 mil, which is less than one piece of Torva. So, I mean, my personal opinion is it's great that it's strong. I don't mind having strong armor in the game. We just got to make sure that the hours to complete is at least competitive to the alternative, which would be Torva. Because otherwise you're just making Torva obsolete, and then you're making this armor so easy to get that you're obviously going to buy Oathplate for 100 mil in a year from now if this is how it keeps going. Like, if everybody just keeps doing it, it's going to be dirt cheap. And that's my big worry, is it's just going to be so cheap. And I love the content, and I love doing Yama, and I just really hope that, I don't know, they change something about it.
So I think my personal opinion on this is, I think that the comparison to the Fang is very apt. And I personally think that the solution should be the same as the Fang, which is make it only viable for one attack style, that was the whole thing with the Fang, is it was just as good on Slash as it was on Stab, which was ridiculous for that weapon. And you mentioned earlier that the Oath Plate has really good bonuses for Slash, and it has 0. It's just nothing for Crush and for Stab. I think one step is to take that further and to give negative bonuses. I actually pulled up the Inquisitor's top, and the Inquisitor's top has a -3 accuracy on Stab and Slash. So it's a Crush focused armor. Because I think the way I don't think Oathplate should sit next to Torva. I think Oathplate should sit in the tier below with Inquisitors, Inquisitors is like a Crush focus, best in slot at certain high defense Crush bosses. And I think that Oathplate should be only best in slot at high defense Slash monsters, which admittedly there are more of those in the game than there are for Crush. But
I think that's like the issue right there, is that there's so many high Slash defense monsters that you use Slash on. I think that's the issue, is that there's just so many in the game.
Yeah, but I can see that. I can see, like, long term of the game, that being a more manageable thing, where like TOA was the big, they were really focused on Stab, and then recently they've been really focused on Crush. And I think that's a big design goal of Jagex, is to really fill in the Stab and the Crush sides of the game. But I don't know. Yeah, I think in my mind, I would rather see the like 3 different attack style weapons have attack styles for melee, have their specialized armor, and then Torva always be objectively the best. But maybe that would mean that Oathplate would be at the price it's at now or lower. And so maybe that's a bad idea. I don't know. But
like my counter argument to that is, are you ever going to go get Inquisitors ever in your life? Probably not. You're never going to need Inquisitors. You're never probably ever going to use Inquisitors. And the whole Inquisitors set is like dirt cheap. I mean, it's cheap. And the content, this is where it suffers. The content is fun. I enjoy Fasani's Nightmare. Everybody's going to shoot me for saying that. I recently picked it up. I was learning it with a buddy of mine in the CC. He absolutely loves Fasani's, and I was just there to get I wanted to have every boss ranked on the high scores. And so I set myself a goal to do that. And Fasani's was the last thing that I needed to get ranked. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to get my 1 KC and I'm going to dip. Got my 1 KC. Turns out you need 5 KC to be on the leaderboard. So I was like, shoot, whatever. I'll go get 4 more KC. I got 4 more KC, and I really fell in love with Fasani's. Now I'm only 25 KC, so I can't be like, oh, it's the best content ever because I haven't done it all that much. But I have really been enjoying Fasani's, and it makes me really sad that the armor and most of the drops there are useless, and the drops that are good are crazy rare, but they're also crazy expensive at the same time. So the GP per hour at Fasani's isn't great because of the drops being so rare. Tying that all into Oathplate, you never use the Inquisitor's armor, and that's why it's so cheap. And Fasani's isn't done by a lot of people because the armor is just so cheap, and there's not really a point in doing it because it doesn't have any really good niche uses. Even though there are like niche times where Inquisitors is better than Torva, it's just not enough to make it worth anything. So maybe in the future, if they really focus on these, they get the 3 armor sets out there, stab and then slash and crush. They get them out there and then they make them really good at a certain piece of content. I mean, that would be great, but I don't know. I just don't know if they're going to do that or not. Maybe they're looking at the game 5 years from now and I'm only looking at it like 1 or 2 years ahead, but I don't know. I do see where you're coming at though. And I would like to see the 3 styles have 3 really good pieces of armor associated with it, with Torva being good. But is Torva always going to be the end game of end game?
No, there will be something bigger and better.
Yeah, I hope not, personally. And I wouldn't have minded if Oathplate was a replacement for Slash for Torva. It's just the drop rate is what makes me sad. If Oathplate right now was 300 mil per piece, I wouldn't be saying anything. I wouldn't pipe up. Yeah. I would be so content and so happy that we have an armor that's useful in Slash that's better than Torva. I'd be happy as can be.
Yeah.
So,
I hear you.
Yeah. So that's kind of just where I'm at. Sorry, that was a really long rant that I just went on.
No. You have, I mean, that's why it's so valuable to have like that perspective though, because like I'm realizing while you're saying this, I'm like, yeah, why don't you nerf it? I still want it because I'm going from Blood Moon to this. So that would still be a huge upgrade for me. But yeah, I can see how taking it below Torva and and we've already kind of talked in circles about we can't just make the fight harder. So I don't know. Yeah, I really hate that the solution would be make higher drop rates. But it's a hard situation. There's not an easy answer to it, but it does seem like that might be the least the best of two evils.
Yeah, the lesser. There should have just been more testing inside of the Jagex headquarters, whether that's kill times, whether that's drop rates, whether that's the armor itself and how good it is at certain pieces of content. Something like their A plus B is not equaling C. Like their A plus B is like equaling F for failing because they did not do well in this. It's just like they created such a fun boss, such a great fight, and then the drop rates are just jacked up, or the rewards are just jacked up, and it just makes me so sad because this is such a good piece of content that I wish that we could just endlessly do this content and there would be no repercussion because it's just so fun. Like similar to Tob, where like it's always been good GP per hour to do Tob. It always will be good GP hour to do Tob. And so you can consistently do Tob. I'm worried that Yama will not be like that in 1 year or 2 years from now. It will be, okay, well, Yama's not that great and it's really only good if you're pet hunting. And besides that, kind of out of luck.
Yeah, but all that being said, let's switch gears a little bit to the Iron Man community, where this is a fantastic piece of content. The low drop rates are great for us. This is all, I mean, everything you're saying is positive.
It's true.
You know, I guess the only difference you're saying about it will always be good to go to Taub. I guess if the drop rates are lower at Yama, it won't always be good for Ironman because you'll complete it faster. But it for the sake of not having the drops yet, it will always be good to go there, especially now that it's like, it's kind of, okay. I want to go on a little mini rant here. So me included, we saw that Oathplate came out and it was on par with Torva, let's say. And us Ironmen, us mid-game Ironmen got really excited because there were two things that we kept saying: Bandos skip and Torva skip. And I get it. It was a shiny new toy and we were all really excited about it. But I got some harsh news for everybody. There's a lot more to Bandos and Nex than just the armor. And you're still going to have to go there regardless of having Oathplate, because BGS and ZCB are some items you're really going to want. And I fell into that same trap. And there's still some validity to it. Like, especially with Nex, it's like, yeah, if I get Oathplate, I'm not rushing to get a ZCB anytime soon. But Bandos especially, like, there's an argument to be made of BGS is more important than getting Bandos armor, regardless of Yama. It's potentially the most valuable drop there overall, just in general. So I know we all got excited that the Oathplate came out, and we weren't going to have to do Altar Door at Bandos with our Bofas, but I hate to break it to you guys, we're still going to have to do that, sadly. Sorry, that's my little Ironman rant.
It's good to have it. I don't get that perspective. I understand this. I did see all the woo Bandos skip, and I was like, well, good for you guys. I don't really like soloing Bandos either, so I get it. It's a Bandos stall. Fair. At least it gives a little bit, but I mean, yeah, like I said, BGS is such an important item to get, especially since Moons came out. I think BGS is the most important item to get from Bandos in the first place. Mm-hmm. So it's not a Bandos skip, but it is going to be really cool to get the Oathplate, especially since it looks so much cooler than Bandos. That is insane to me. If you think that Bandos is cooler looking than Oathplate, I don't even know where to come from. Oh man. Not the tacits, what the chest piece does. Not the tacits. Tacits are lame.
Oh my God. All right. Let me. I even showed pictures of these armor sets to my wife, who knows nothing about RuneScape. And she was like, well, I showed her all the best in slot armor sets. Right? Yeah. And she thought they all looked really cool. And then I showed her Bandos and she was just like, ew. So I'm not crazy. Okay, please. All right, please, everybody.
Here's what I'll do. I'll follow up. I'll show my wife a picture of all the best in slot armors, and I will follow up in the Discord under the podcast section. I will follow up and I will see if she prefers what she prefers. That's what I'll do. I cannot tolerate being gaslit by this community into thinking that Bandos is cool looking. It is the worst armor set. Well, besides the Armadillo, of course. That is objectively the dumbest looking armor set. Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I keep getting totally sidetracked by the looks of it because I think Oathplate looks so cool. But yeah, it's just a hard situation. And I think we're going to see changes. And I'm sure this is there's certain people at Jagex who have probably been nonstop talking about this every single day. They're very well aware of it. Reddit has let them know that Reddit has made them very aware of their issues. But yeah, I guess at the end of the day, we're just going to kind of have to wait and see. I think as much as I made an argument for nerfing the armor, I would rather them do a drop rate change, because you still just have to get the armor once. And then once you get the armor, the benefits of it stay with you, as opposed to if they nerfed it, then you still have to get the armor and it's less beneficial to you. So that would be my only argument for why I would rather them change the drop rates. But I would, of course, rather them change the drop rates after I've gotten it, which is a sentiment that I think is shared by a lot of people. But yeah, I don't know what else I can say about the armor. It's sure sparked a lot of controversy.
That it has. I wish that it didn't. I wish that it was released well and everything went over well. But I mean, here we are. I'm glad that I'm not a game dev, and I'm glad that it's not my job to figure it out. I'm just here to critique it and give my opinions. So
Yeah. And just kind of summing up our whole conversation, I think the worst thing about all of this is overshadowing such a good PVM update.
Yeah.
Which I'm
good. Such a fun.
I'm afraid
boss.
of. I'm afraid of the all about the Delve boss that will eventually come out. That I worry we're going to have the exact same conversation because those rewards have also been just such a contentious thing.
Yeah,
But
those have been all over the
that
place.
for another day.
Yeah. That's a whole nother conversation topic.
That's a whole can of worms.
Yeah.
That's a can of diabolical worms.
Oh, nice.
Thank you. But yeah, I think that's pretty much everything we can possibly say about Yama after only being out for 1 week. I guess to summarize my thoughts, I mean, it's an awesome fight. I look forward to doing it. I don't look forward to having to socialize, but it's worth it because it's a great fight. I'm an Iron Man, so I am just desperate to get all of the drops, and I don't care what the price of them are. And I'm glad that it's not even on my radar to do the contracts for the transmog because that sounds absolutely hellish. And I cannot wait for them to change that or at least do something with it. Because as Mitty has described it to me, that sounds completely unhinged to the point where it has to change.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if it doesn't. So I guess to summarize my thoughts as well, absolutely loved the boss fight. It was so fun. They need to work on the Jagex launcher.
Oh, yeah.
Fixed ASAP because I woke up early and I didn't even get to play. So I was really sad. But the boss fight's great. The armor's great. It looks great. The contract system is cool. They just need to adjust it in general. I don't know how to fix it. I think it sounds cool in theory, but I don't think it works out very well. But overall, I mean, I love the fight. I love doing it with friends. I love the duo aspect of it. I wish it was better duo. But overall, I think it's a great update. I think the boss was so fun that it gives me hope for all the new content that they're going to be releasing, like the Delve boss coming up here, hopefully pretty soon. I think it was supposed to be fall of this year, so should be pretty soon. I'm pretty excited for that. Maybe it was summer. I can't remember. I know it's soon. Whatever it is, it's coming up. But I'm pretty excited for that. So, but yeah, I'm excited to see tomorrow all the people doing contracts and how hard it is. So we will see.
Yeah, that's a great thing we should be saying every day. I'm excited to see tomorrow. Okay, cool. Well, yeah. Well, thanks everybody for. I told Mitty before we started, like, hey, this can be a quick one because it's just about one boss. But here we are, 2 hours in, as always. But yeah, thanks so much for coming on, Mitty, our unofficial news correspondent, our main representative, all those things.
I'm just going to shout out the Arrested Development, I can't remember, Tobias, whenever he's the Never News. There's dozens of us everywhere. Same thing with us mains. We still live. Don't let these Iron Men think that they run this world. All right, there are still mates out there. We're here for each other.
Yeah, you'll be an Iron Man.
There's
eventually.
dozens of us everywhere.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. I guess honestly, more than your thoughts about Yama, I would love to show your partner or your parents or somebody a picture of Torva and then a picture of Bandos and a picture of Oathplate. Have them rank them. I just cannot believe that people would put Bandos to the top of that. This is the hill that I will die on. So yeah, thanks for listening, everybody. And we will see you on the next one.